Welcome to the Bad Mom Podcast. I'm your host, Anastasia. Today is a very special episode. It's a collaboration with Noel Rodriguez. And Noel is a military ally from New Jersey who's passionate and wants to make a difference. And he's just like me, kind of like can't sit there and just watch things go down and not use our voice. So here we are. His grandfather served in the Korean War, so that's a big deal to him. As you know, my ex-husband was in the military, and being part of a military family and a military wife really showed how neglected these heroes are. And everyone I saw come home was either in a coffin or came home with some kind of issues. And I don't think that our soldiers are getting what they need when they come home. So I found Noel, and Noel has been following all these movements, starting with Vanessa Guillen, and he actually went to a Washington, D.C. rally, and I'm going to be asking him about that. And we are live now, Noel. Thank you for
Awesome,
being
awesome.
here.
Anna, thank you for having me. Greatly appreciate your time, and what you're doing is invaluable to the cause. And I'm glad to have found you, and I look forward to more work with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So would you please describe what made you care?
Okay. So this year I celebrated my 35th birthday. It was actually in the month of June. And I woke up that morning incredibly blessed, despite being in this whole lockdown and bizarre reality with COVID-19. Uh, and that morning, I turned on the television, started to watch the news, and the very first report that I came across was Gloria Guillen, the mother of the late specialist Vanessa Guillen, and her younger sister Lupe Guillen, protesting at the main gate of Fort Hood. Initially, I didn't know what they were protesting, and I kind of got immersed into that report that morning. And before noon on that day, I had been galvanized beyond anything I'd ever felt before to aid in this family's pursuit of justice. The reason in particular why I felt so compelled that day to, you know, begin helping this family secure that justice was because I had come across, throughout my younger years, many different stories of other women soldiers who had suffered the same fate. And it was always striking to me that these women, these protectors of our country, these people who have committed themselves to a greater good, um, can meet such a heinous and depraved end while on base serving on our soil. They didn't die in military conflicts on foreign land. They were killed here, and in many cases by brothers in arms. So that day, I was pushed to an action. I'm sorry, I was pushed to action and out of inaction. And since then, I've made it a personal mission to not only help the Guillen family, again, in their effort to secure justice for their daughter, but for the many families of the many victims who are still suffering and still demanding answers from a very secretive United States Armed Services.
Well, thank you so much for your passion, and your voice is very important. And we randomly connected by the grace of God. I don't
Hmm.
know, and it was
Amen.
our passions collided, and I'm just really happy that there's other people out there, because at some point, like, the amount of emotion that I feel when I read these horrible, horrible stories, and it's not
Hmm.
even just reading them. When I actually see another mother crying for her dead baby, it
Hmm.
actually does give me like EBGBs, right?
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
it actually makes me her pain becomes my pain, and it,
Hmm.
like we talked about earlier, we have to limit that because there's only so much that we can handle. So
Hmm.
amen to you for caring, and it
Well, thank you.
takes it takes a lot to care, because you could just sit by and not care and
Yeah, yeah.
do
And
nothing.
this the same goes for you, Anna. You know, to carve out time in your life to put your foot down and say, you know what, I'm going to lend my voice to this cause now and going forward. It takes a lot. That's an incredible endeavor for you to have began. And again, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. So tell us about how you went to Washington, D.C. to that
Okay.
protest.
Yeah. So between the time of June 12th, when I first became aware of the case, and mind you, this is June 12th, Vanessa had already disappeared April 22nd. So 2 weeks from the
June
date that I
12th.
found out, we would actually find her remains on June the 30th. So from June the 12th until July 30th, which was the date for the Washington, D.C. rally, I was reaching out to congressmen all over the state of Texas, particularly within the 31st Legislative District, which is in charge of managing the area in and around Fort Hood. I started to reach out to other military advocates, and I basically buried myself in research. I wanted to know the history of Fort Hood. I wanted to familiarize myself with the many cases, deaths, and disappearances at Fort Hood related to non-combat injuries. And I kid you not, from June 12th until I decided to go down to the rally, it felt like 2 minutes. That's how much information I was going through, staying up nights, and just trying to make these connections that I thought would be the basis for, again, my effort to help the family in their effort to secure justice for Vanessa. So July 30th, I wind up taking the ride down from New Jersey to Washington, D.C., and I got there early. I was happy that I got there early because I was worried about getting there too late. And I thought that the march would have happened already and that I wouldn't be able to get close to anyone of importance. So gladly, once I got down there, I was one of the early ones. They had a they had a small stage set up between the National Monument and the White House where they would kind of welcome the groups for coming. Gloria Guillen, as well as the Guillen sisters, would make opening statements there, followed by statements made by the family lawyer, Natalie Cowham. And from there, we would march to the second larger stage, which was on the Great Lawn directly in front of the White House. That's where Gloria Guillen expressed some revelations that were told to her by Army CID. And if you'd like, I could kind of
Yeah.
express what that is right now, but it is sensitive, it's disturbing, and it may trigger some. But these are words that were expressed by Gloria Guillen on the White House lawn, information given to her directly by Army CID, who specifically told her, I cannot say this information. As CID, if I expose this information, I'm jeopardizing my own life as well as the life of my family, but you can be my voice. And so he explained to Gloria Guillen about the death of a newborn baby who was born to a soldier in Fort Hood. And in order to cover up what is likely to have been a rape before the birth of this baby, the baby was thrown from the window of a tall barracks building in Fort Hood. Obviously, the baby didn't survive.
Oh
Um,
my God.
you won't find this story in mainstream media, and the only people who are privy to this information is Army CID at Fort Hood, who are actively covering up that story, as well as the Guillen family and Natalie Cowham and the people who were present at the rally in Washington, D.C. that day. She goes on to say that soldiers reached out to her personally, telling her that she should not accept the narrative given by Fort Hood regarding the death of Vanessa, that they know from personal experience and they know firsthand that those damage control um, default sentiments that were given by the Army investigators were all false. And those were given to the family in an effort to continue with the cover up. Remember, the Army CID had 63 days to get their story straight from the time that Vanessa disappeared until the time that her remains were found by Tim Miller and Texas EcuSearch. God bless them. So they had plenty of
Tim
time.
Miller?
Yeah, Tim Miller. If you're not familiar with Mr. Tim Miller, this man is an angel on earth. Um, just talking about Mr. Tim Miller almost pushes me to tears. Back in the mid '80s, Tim Miller's daughter was abducted shortly after she was found murdered. Rather than allow this to cripple him into inaction and to basically destroy his life, from that point on, Tim Miller dedicated his life and his resources to helping families locate missing loved ones. And from the 1980s up until now, he's been responsible for locating thousands of people, hundreds and hundreds of deceased and missing people. And Texas EcuSearch was responsible for finding the remains of Vanessa Guillen. So this man did essentially what the Army could not do, because remember, Fort Hood was telling us and the family that they had contingents of soldiers searching areas for Vanessa Guillen, that they had organized search efforts to look for her. And, you know, for Tim Miller to be called up July 17th, for Tim Miller to be called up June 17th and to have found the remains on June 30th, that just tells you, you know, the level of ineffectiveness Army CID was operating with. And it's that same level of ineffectiveness that Representative Sylvia Garcia of Texas stated as part of the congressional investigation or congressional delegation August 31st, that Army CID was wholly incapable, ineffective, and unable to handle this case and likely other cases. So now back to the march in Washington. Anna, I just wanted to express how incredibly powerful the words were that I heard from the Guillen family and from the many women, men included, who went on that stage and spoke their truth and expressed their stories. I had never been exposed to anything like that before. And anything up until that point to me seemed incredibly superficial. There's a quote, I'm not sure who can be attributed to this quote right now, but there's a quote that says, oh, Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill said that the lie is making its way around the world while the truth is still putting its pants on. And so much of the information that we heard in the early days of this investigation was actually false. And after the conclusion of the congressional delegation's investigation, as well as the 5-person civilian panel, there's going to be some very hard and disturbing news and facts that come out in the near future.
Yeah. Well, the Vanessa Guillen bill, why do you know why it's not being passed?
Okay, very good question.
Or should we stick to the rally first? Is there more rally stuff you want to touch on? Because
Well,
that's a
I mean,
major question I have.
yeah, so if you have any questions specifically about the rally, then we can continue there. Otherwise, you know, I have some answers on why we're at a stalemate with the bill.
Okay. Yeah, did the family say anything about what's going on with the bill?
Yeah, so as of right now, Lupe Guillen, which is the 16-year-old youngest sister of Vanessa Guillen, she is actively promoting information that basically teaches people about the bill. And she's also disseminating information, contact information for Texas congressmen and delegates, so that we can all call them and push for the bill to be passed. Right now, the bill is in a stalemate because, according to Nancy Pelosi, she does not want to introduce the bill to the floor on a vote until after the election, of course, because, in her words, she's afraid that President Donald Trump will use the bill as a way to garner the Hispanic vote, which, excuse my language, is a bunch of bullshit.
I mean, everything that woman says is bullshit. So
just about, just full disclosure, just about. I'm really.
I'm sick of being lied to constantly. I'm
Yeah.
really getting sick of it. I'm sick of being spewed BS to my face, thinking that I'm too stupid to understand that they're lying to me. Body language. I'm Like, I
Hmm.
see that you're full of shit, Nancy Pelosi. Anyways, Donald Trump actually cares about our troops and our military, and
Hmm.
I don't really think the Democrat Party cares based on Obama's administration. That's a side
Well,
note.
yeah, definitely. And a side note, and if I could just piggyback with you on that, from a historical perspective, we understand that the policies or the ideologies behind the Democratic Party shift from term to term and from candidate to candidate. We know that. But the scary thing about this particular time in history, this election, and this group of Democrats is the fact that their policies, their decisions, and their end goals are essentially to establish socialism in this country. That's basically what it is. The far left ideology now is subverting every man, woman, and child in this country to a possible future under socialist rule. And it has never worked anywhere else in the world. Okay. Some people, some uneducated or simple minded people may get the idea of socialism and say, hey, well, that doesn't sound too bad. Guess what? It is bad.
You
It
won't
is
have a
bad.
voice in socialism.
You will not. And the way that I like to break it down for the people who don't care much to educate is this: a capitalist will see a mansion and say, you know what? Everyone deserves one of those. Let's all work, capitalize off our skills, and we all can have a mansion. Whereas a socialist will look at a mansion and say, those people do not deserve that. Let's take it.
Yep.
What what is that?
It's a simple mindset of give, just give, give, give. But like, where is
Hmm.
it coming from?
Yeah,
It's coming from
no,
our
no good.
pockets, you idiots.
Yeah. So I
Oh.
didn't want to go on left. I just wanted to piggyback on that for a second because that was very important. So
It's
if you,
important because these views are radical, and
yeah.
they're being pushed and shoved down our throats,
Hmm.
and people are protesting for the wrong reasons right now. They're just
Yeah.
jumping on a trend.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, this is an actual, like, legit thing that needs to change right
Hmm.
now.
Hmm.
If you haven't been paying attention, Black Lives Matter and Tifa, they're only around on election year. Like,
Oh yeah, and it's incredible how people have willfully, because at this point it's willful ignorance, but people have willfully ignored that the so-called leaders of BLM have expressed that they follow socialist ideology. They've expressed it 110%. There's no refuting that. They've
yeah.
expressed it. In fact, Time Magazine just released an issue that included the 100 most influential people of 2020, and one of the founders of BLM was included
Uh,
in that feature.
Half of these
So
BLM people have been like put in jail too.
I mean, I
We
can't
could talk
speak
about
to.
that in a whole nother episode.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's how much time you got.
Yeah, right. But what I was saying, to finish that part of our conversation, is
Yeah.
AOC said herself that Joe Biden can be pushed to whatever, like, direction they want.
Yeah.
That, to me, it was the scariest thing she's ever said. She's said some scary things, but that I
Hmm.
know is not bullshit, because he's a
Hmm.
softie and he will go. I mean, he has been
Hmm.
for the last 47 years. This way, that way, this way, whatever
Yeah.
works, bro. Whatever, let's,
Whatever
yeah.
works.
Whatever you
Whatever
like to
works.
hear, baby girl, I'll tell you
Yep.
it all. And it's like, depending on who he's talking to. Meanwhile,
Hmm.
Donald Trump, on the other hand, has literally said and done everything he was going to do,
Pretty
or
much.
is in the works, because he's got a lot of work to do.
Hmm.
Okay, but he's made America great by focusing on our military. Our
Hmm.
VA is so
Hmm.
much better, and I've heard
That's
that
amazing.
from people that have that the VA has failed and have
Hmm.
said publicly, like, oh my god, the VA is better, they're caring.
Wow.
Yeah, they care a little more, things are a little faster, and they get to go outside of the VA to see doctors now. I mean,
Hmm.
since when have we been doing? Never. You had to
Wow.
wait for an appointment at VA for like your entire day, if not more than one day. And the healthcare that they're receiving was crap. And I've heard it's better. So I mean, we are making a difference there. That's why
Progress. Yeah. Yeah.
I really, really have good faith in the president. and doing the right thing. And let's hope that he feels better and gets back to work soon. Sorry, Nancy Pelosi. Like, you can't use the 25th Amendment, okay? It's
I
not
mean,
how it works.
to be honest with you, and just to wrap this one up, I believe that Nancy Pelosi's intent by invoking the 25th Amendment is not necessarily to harm Donald Trump. She's already anticipating Biden winning this election, but she
Yeah.
also knows that Biden's cognitive abilities are not going to last much longer. So that's actually an attempt to get into it to insert Kamala Harris into the presidency, because they're both from California, so they could
Oh
continue
my
on
God.
with their crooked cabal
Imagine the
of.
whole country was run like California.
Oh, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't
People
be
are
here.
moving back people are running from California. Like,
Oh yeah,
it's
oh
not
yeah.
just the weather now, it's everything. They finally
It's
realized
everything.
it. The
Hmm.
most expensive It's one of the most expensive states to live in. They basically have nothing but
Hmm.
wildfires, not tornadoes, whatever. The fault line is there, and they're constantly experiencing those kind of
Hmm.
damages and
Water droughts.
water droughts. How are you even
Hmm.
supposed to survive there as a farmer? You basically have to use irrigation. You can't do anything else. And
Yeah,
it's damaging to the environment. That's a whole
yeah.
nother tangent. I'm an environmentalist, by the way. I don't know if you are, but hey,
Listen, we
and
only
it's
have one
crazy.
planet. There is no planet B.
It's crazy how they attack Trump for all the environmental stuff, but like, you got to pick and choose your battles, guys. And California, man, is turning into a crack shop. I don't even know, a crack house. Basically, all of San
Hmm.
Francisco is
Hmm.
just destroyed. Imagine the rest of the country being like that. Nancy
No, no,
Pelosi
no.
only wants to put past the Guillen bill only for her own benefit. She doesn't care about the family whatsoever.
Well, not only that, it's tokenism. It's pure tokenism,
That's
and
right.
she's projecting. So she's saying that she doesn't want to introduce the bill that the president has already supported because she was afraid that he would be garnering support from the Latinos. But
No
she
one
was in front of
cares.
the Guillen family, a Latino family, along with Latino delegates, and promised that before the end of October, that she would put this bill on the floor for vote. So who's
Unbelievable.
pandering to who? You know what I mean? And it's
It's
you
disgusting.
can't make this stuff up, Anna. You really
No,
can't.
you really can't. And the fact that there's people actually paying attention now is great, because I'm so sick of the people saying, "Oh, I don't follow politics. Oh, politics is what." That's how you get your rights taken away. You stop paying attention, and they freaking slip in whatever they want on the agenda, and there. You go. That's law now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Pay attention. Wake up. Do your research. Stop
Hmm.
watching the news, and follow people on social media like Noel that actually cares. Noel, what's your Instagram handle, by the way?
So that's Rodriguez, Rodriguez 61285.
Awesome. Yes. Follow people that actually give a shit to make a difference, because that's the only way
Hmm.
we're gonna make a change.
Yeah,
Funny stuff is cool, but like, that's not making our society better, and that should be
yeah,
everybody's priority, at least a little bit, for your
yeah.
future, your kids' future, the taxes you might not have to pay. Like everything. You should care about everything that's going on, or
Hmm.
the people in power will take away your rights.
Absolutely.
Is it
And
gonna is
and
it gonna take a dead soldier of a family member to give a shit about something? I mean, everybody should care, because that could be your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your
absolutely,
dad. Care.
absolutely. And these are all common sense ideas, Anna. This is not anything strange that you're, on some fringe theory picking up. This is absolutely true. We're not fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for the generations that come behind us. My daughter is 13 years old. Okay, in 5 years, if she decides that she wants to serve in the military, as have many women in my family, both in the past and present, I don't want that conversation to be filled with anxiety, reluctance, apprehension, uncertainty, fear,
Yeah.
right? I want that conversation to be filled with healthy pride, with education, with happiness, with certainty in safety, right? And with a better, or with a good conclusion in mind, right? And so that's why you and I and many people like us are starting this grassroots efforts to raise awareness and to put our foot down and say, listen, as tax-paying citizens of this nation, we are not going to shut up and allow you to take our money and think that we're pleased with vanity and pleased with materialism. You know,
Yep.
it's great. It's great that we have two cars, but if sending those two cars back saves two lives, guess what? I'll walk. If that
Exactly.
makes any kind of sense.
It does. And the statistic of women in the military going through sexual assault at least once in their career is one in
Phenomenal. One
four
in three.
women. 1 in 3 now?
It's one in
It's
three,
even
Anna. Yeah,
higher now.
it's 1 in 3, and this
Oh
is
my God.
directly from the
It's
DoD.
worse.
So you can access the DoD website, and 110%, 1 in 3 women will suffer sexual harassment or exploitation in the military, right? With more than half of those cases happening even before they're deployed. So you're talking basic training, basic. How? I mean, how? How? And one thing I want to bring up, and I hope that we have viewers that will agree with me on this. We have to begin to look at the money that goes into this. So for fiscal year 2020, the national budget was approved at over $415 trillion. That's the national budget for fiscal year 2020. Of the $415 trillion, 1/6 of that budget goes to fund the Pentagon and the military. So that translates to roughly 750 to 780 billion dollars. Okay, now this goes to fund the bases. So essentially, you're telling me that 24 cents of every dollar that I make that's taxed in this country goes to fund the military who is okay with raping my daughters, with raping my sons, with raping my women. I mean, come on, come on. This is this. No, no, no. This is just not on my
You broke
watch,
it
not on
down like
yours.
you just broke it down to like the most. Oh my God, the most math, man. It's and that's what statistics. We have them all. We can do
Mhm.
all our own research, and the more you learn, don't you want to learn more? And you
Yes.
just get kind of like sucked into it. Like, how is this okay? How is this
Hmm.
happening? What? Why? Why is it happening? Because
And
it's so easy to recite these army values and the army
yeah,
song
yeah,
and all this, and it
yeah,
sounds like bullshit to my
yeah.
ears now,
Hmm.
knowing how corrupt everything is. I don't want to
Absolutely.
send my kids to the military anymore. And I wanted to join the military. Thank God nothing
Of
happened to me.
course.
And you know what? It was a great time, a great experience. I wanted to join but had I stayed in longer, would I
Hmm.
have been sexually assaulted? Probably.
God forbid.
Probably.
God forbid. But the statistics aren't in your favor, and that is the sad
That's
thing.
right.
You know.
And that's
Um,
only statistics that are reported.
oh, 100%. Good to mention that. Those are only the statistics that are reported. Remember, an overwhelming majority of these cases are underreported or not reported simply because the victims fear retaliation. Because in many cases, the perpetrators of these crimes are their superiors. Can you believe that?
Yep, I sure can. We got a woman called Rihanna Place.
Mm,
She's speaking out right now.
yeah.
I wanna
God bless her.
really
Brave, brave
bless
woman.
her. So, so incredibly brave, so
Hmm.
incredibly strong, and I feel that she is just as strong. But it took her definitely a long time to get there because
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
speaking
That
out
no
about
easy thing.
this, oh
Hmm.
my God. I mean, you got people. I have a couple people that want to come on the podcast that want to be anonymous because they don't want to destroy their lives. They don't want to be a target. They're embarrassed for what happened, and that's the whole thing of this victim shaming. That's
Hmm.
why it's underreported because they're retaliated against. They know this happens. Why they want to be a target? I mean,
Hmm.
in most cases, people that report sexual assault in the military are retaliated against. They
Hmm.
are demoted, like for some stupid reason, or they're put on some shitty detail,
Hmm.
and that's like a task or whatever. But
Hmm.
they're sent to the shittiest duty stations. Who knows? They're just
Don't
already
forget.
labeled a shit bag before they
Hmm.
even get to their next duty station. There's
Yeah.
something in their file that tells someone, hey, this guy's a rat,
Hmm.
and we want to keep our
Absolutely.
statistics low so we look good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it looks like
That's
nothing
all
is
it's about.
happening.
That's all it's about. What the powers that be, all they want to do is maintain combat readiness. And in order to maintain combat readiness, you need bodies, lots of bodies. And so you begin to look at soldiers as just bodies,
Yeah.
numbers, right? A numbers and powers game. And so that is directly a result of poor leadership, ineffective leadership, and a decay in the morale and integrity of the United States Army.
Exactly.
And that's what has to be addressed. We really have to take a hard and comprehensive look at the military leadership structure and how they are maintaining um, morale in the military or maintaining safety for soldiers. It's, you know,
How do you feel
so
about
many questions.
civilian oversight
So the civilian oversight, that's a great question. And
or a
initially I thought that,
contractor, something?
okay, so do you mean in terms of the civilian oversight board that was sent to Fort Hood, or civilian oversight in general?
Wait, did that happen?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we
So
don't have any civilian oversight on this OSI like in the Air Force. I'm not sure. Is it the DIC? What did you call it? The
CID,
DIC,
Army
CID,
CID.
Army
Yeah.
CID. What does that stand for exactly?
Army Criminal Investigation Division.
Yes, nobody oversees them, right? Currently, because I
I
don't
would
think they do.
only the Secretary of the Army. So I believe that the Secretary of the Army, who was the gentleman that was interviewed during the 2 hour special, I think his name is McCarthy. Was that him?
McCarthy?
So I think the Secretary of the Army right now is McCarthy, and he's a civilian. He's not a part of the actual chain of command. And the reason why you have a civilian Secretary of the Army is to provide, essentially a civilian oversight.
Good. Yeah, because it's like politics over there. It's like,
Mm.
oh, you do me dirty, I'll screw you later. Like, and
Oh yeah.
people want to stay good with other people. It's a business relationship, technically.
Hmm. And you know what? If we can just take a quick second to go back to the whole money thing about it.
Yeah.
So there are over 63,000 people stationed at Fort Hood on any given time. There are over 5,000 households and over 5,000 families. So it's a huge place. It's just like any regular city. In fact, the closest town, which is the town of Killeen, Texas, is essentially built around the fort. And so the fort generates a huge amount of money. There was a report released late last year from the Texas Commerce that showed that Fort Hood contributed, I think it was $29.8 million towards the Texas economy. And as a whole, all of the military installations in Texas contributed a whopping $130 billion to the Texas economy. So that
Wow.
immediately tells us that there's so much money being made that the incentive to keep bad behavior under wraps at these bases is high.
Yeah.
It's on the top of one's list. And so you have to begin to ask yourself, how is this money coming into play regarding the power structure and the chain of command in places like Fort Hood? According to DoD statistics, which you can also access on the DoD website, a little known fact is that we also have, and this is at Fort Hood, percentages of members who are part of outlaw gangs. For example, you have, I think, 3% of soldiers inside of Fort Hood who are part of Hell's Angels. You have some who are part of the Banditos Outlaw Motorcycle Club. You have a part who, crazy enough, are part of Thug Riders, which is a Hudson County, New Jersey 1% outlaw club.
Thug Riders?
And Thug Riders, yeah.
Wow.
And not to mention white supremacists who hold positions in the military, and the Mexican drug cartels who also have infiltrated the military. And this is happening right now actively in Fort Hood and has been for quite some time. Now, obviously, you and I are not going to be privy to this information. This is not going to be stuff that we hear on mainstream media. And in order for the military to maintain its combat readiness and to uphold its integrity and to keep the willful recruits coming in every month, this information is not widely publicized, and it should be.
Yeah, and
especially considering that the crime rate at Fort Hood is 63% above the national average on total crime, Anna. 63% above the national average, and this comes from an American military installation on American soil.
I've never heard anything good about Fort Hood.
I mean, and that's crazy considering that it's called the Great Place. I saw a sign in Washington that also made its way to a rally in California that said, Fort Hood, a great place to get killed, murdered, raped.
Oh my God.
You know, it's
Yeah,
had a terrible history. It's had a
that's
terrible 76-year history since September 18th, 1942, when the first division rolled into Fort Hood, which was the 893rd Tank and Armored Division under the command of then Texas General Bruce. And back in 1942, when this division rolled into Fort Hood, they essentially took that land from 300 farming and ranching families with little to no notice at all. And these farming and ranching families reluctantly agreed only because the Army allowed for their cattle to continue grazing on that land, which sits on an incredible 218,000 acres.
oh my
So it's
God.
built on pain and suffering, this place. And, again, like Jackie Spears and Sylvia Garcia said, as part of the congressional delegation, there is a cancer and a sickness at Fort Hood, and there's something in the water.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot to digest.
Hmm.
Thank you for doing that research. I
My
appreciate it.
pleasure.
Um, you know, Fort Bragg is a problem. In Fort Bliss, I feel like it's everywhere. We start digging in Fort Hood.
Hmm.
What are we gonna find in Fort Bragg? And a lot of soldiers are getting ballsy and they're coming out and they're speaking the truth,
Hmm.
just like Rihanna Place, and nothing good is coming out. Like everything seems like and I've listened to other podcasts. The American, I think it's the Female Veterans podcast. Every
Hmm.
woman on there that came on so far, I haven't listened to the whole thing, have been stories of sexual assault,
Yeah.
the military doing things behind their backs, screwing their careers, retaliation, and it's just really sad because
Yeah.
I was that girl, 19 years old, wanted to join the military and serve my country.
Yeah.
I'm like a proud American, and
Hmm.
I know most people that have retired from the military, they they don't want their kids to go, and they don't want to talk about it really. It's just
Well,
like
you know what? It's
they're
it's
glad to
very
be out.
interesting. It's very interesting that you brought that up. So, in Washington, I met an active duty um, National Guardsman, female, who coincidentally was at Fort Hood 2 weeks prior to Vanessa's abduction. And so she expressed to me that what she saw at Fort Hood and what she knows and what she's been exposed to at Fort Hood is nothing compared to what we're told, nothing compared to what we're shown. Um, uh, in terms of what comes out of that base. So everything that we're shown about Fort Hood and belonging to the military in that area of the world is essentially a lie, because what's happening in there is this is a crime-ridden, a government-sponsored place that is receiving huge, unfathomable amounts of federal funding, while also being high in crime, incredibly high. Just like McCarthy said during the 2-hour interview, at Fort Hood, the crime is higher there than across the entire Army formation. This is across the entire Army formation for the United States Armed Services. It's phenomenal. What the hell is happening? And so she told me that her father, um, a career soldier, I believe he completed 36 years in the service. At 21, she went into a recruiter's office. And the father was already deployed. He wasn't even in the States. And so one day she walks into a recruiter's office and starts to get information. She gets a couple seafold pamphlets and brochures, and she decides to look into joining the Navy. Oh, I'm sorry, the military. Um, She says that her father somehow had gotten wind of her going into this recruiting office
Oh my God.
and showed up at her house within 4 days of that visit to expressly forbid her from joining in the service,
Mm.
simply for this reason: my daughters will not serve under the current condition. What he said to her was burned into her mind. She was 21 years old. She's now 40. And despite what the dad told her, she winds up enlisting, and she's a National Guardsman now, and part of the hundreds of National Guardsmen who intermittently throughout the year are stationed at Fort Hood. So it's just incredible. Um, and we can all agree that the corruption and the decline of morality isn't just limited to Fort Hood. It's on other American bases, just like you said.
Yeah, there was a high suicide rate when we lived in Fort Bliss, Texas. Just soldiers coming out of the into the desert, shooting
Mhm.
themselves, gone.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So these men and women have already made the ultimate sacrifice by putting themselves on the line to protect us. What could compel these people to go and do something like that? What have they been exposed to? What have they been pushed to? What has been taken from them? What has been done to them? These are the questions that we need to ask, because a person just doesn't resort to this very permanent solution to temporary problems just like that from one day to the next. This is a buildup. This
Yeah.
is a buildup, and these are people who feel that they will not get the help that they need, that even if they search for this help, it won't be available to them. And many of them do this as a way to protect their families, and that's even more scary. Uh, 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 and this may be something that I may be just overlooking, but I feel like a common factor in many of these recent cases from Fort Hood of soldiers dying were soldiers that were just getting ready to go home within 3 months, 2 months, uh, uh, you know, within a short period of time, they were set to go home. They were done, back to being a civilian, and suddenly they're committing suicide after having conversations with their family about being excited to go home and to get back into their regular chapter of life. And so for them to then suddenly and inexplicably commit suicide and turn up missing and what have you, it's just it's mind-boggling, Anna. It truly is. And to your listeners and to anyone who may be interested in what we're doing or what we're trying to shed light on here, it's very important for us to ask these questions. If we consider ourselves military allies, then we must address the policies and practices in play that allow for the perpetrators of crime in the military to go on with impunity and to essentially continue this.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
because
unreal.
these high-ranking soldiers that stay in as long as, not many people stay in more than uh two terms, I guess.
Right, two
Three,
tours.
three, 3 to 6 years or so is like the
Hmm.
range, because
Typical,
they
yeah.
can't really handle it. It's too much to handle for the little pay that you get, and it's not. It's an experience, let's just say, but it's damaging to that individual, their family. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I mean, come on.
Hmm.
I'm doing this for a reason, and the reason is what I saw was disgusting. I
Yeah.
mean, I saw a lot of good stuff too. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy
Hmm.
my experience as a military wife. I love the community part of it, but
Hmm.
we've had, I think, 3 or 4 soldiers in the last year, two, 2 or 3 committed suicide this year from the unit that my ex-husband was in. And
I'm
i
so
i don't
sorry.
honestly, I'm really sad for these individuals because they were brave enough to go fight for us. They were
Yeah.
brave enough to go fight for what they thought was, our country, America the Great. Whatever's going on in the military, it sounds like
Hmm.
a really shitty underground
Yeah. I
corporation.
mean, it sounds like an unfair trade. I'm gonna
Yeah,
I'm gonna put my personal life and my dreams and my aspirations aside because I want to contribute to the safety of our country that I love, right?
yeah.
But then when
9/11.
I go there, you're gonna give me rape, you're gonna give me sexual harassment, You're going to give me fear? That's not a good trade.
No, no, it's really not. And you know, what we have nothing to lose when we join. Like, we join because we actually have that passion and
Mm,
that desire, and it just gets destroyed.
yeah, yeah.
Destroyed. Go do
Well, you know
this.
what?
You're a piece of shit. Blah blah blah. Oh, maybe one day you'll be something.
Mm,
It's just disturbing. And the
yeah,
amount of strong individuals I've met, though, I have to say that I don't regret doing any of it. I just,
agree. Yeah.
the experience alone just is so eye-opening, what these soldiers go through, what these families go through. I
Hmm.
am so happy to not be part of that anymore. And
Yeah.
but I still support them on the outside. Thank God we're not in that situation anymore. I don't know how people do this for their entire marriage. God bless you,
Yeah,
military wives, dealing with
absolutely.
this stuff as a
Takes a
full-time
toll.
thing,
Yeah.
moving all the time. It's they sacrifice so much.
Yeah.
They deserve at least not having mold in their barracks, not having mold in their
Yeah.
family housing units, not, something, at least a standard decency of living. Me and my ex-husband chose to live off post because of
The
everything
conditions.
awful that we've
Yeah.
heard from other families. It's like,
I
don't
don't
live on
blame you.
post. Don't live on
I don't
post.
blame you.
Yeah. So, and not to get sidetracked, but I had more questions about these cartels. Do you
Hmm.
know exactly what happened to Vanessa Guillen, for our listeners who don't know exactly what happened to her? Would
Sure.
you like to
Sure.
express what happened?
Yeah.
Because
So
I
for
was
the
a little
listeners who may
confused
not be.
with the baby part. So that was unrelated to Vanessa, or
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So and thanks for bringing that up. So not to confuse. So this was additional information that Gloria Guillen, the mother of late specialist Vanessa Guillen, revealed to the supporters at the DC protest to basically show us and tell us and to prove that there is something going on at Fort Hood that is depraved, it's heinous, and it's being actively covered up. That was her point of expressing that. And in fact, she even told President Trump the same thing in the meeting that followed the rally outside. And the transcript is available on the White House website for that meeting, so you could check that out too.
okay.
But for your listeners who may not be familiar necessarily with the beginning of the case or where we're at now, I guess we can begin um, earlier this year when the Army issued a memorandum that would cease activities or limit activities on military installations in an effort to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in military installations. So the base was already actively shut down. We're talking more than 50% of day-to-day operations at the base was shut down. Soldiers were told um, that physical trainings would be canceled, and any activities that would bring soldiers in close proximity to one another. But at the same time, they wanted to make sure that the American military, of course, maintained combat readiness. So that's why the bases weren't 100% shut down for in and out movement.
Hmm.
Going a little further, after the whole lockdowns, the Army Alert Activities Board, which is a forum that shares information and instructions for Army use worldwide, announced another memorandum that said that basically laid down the rules for leaving and coming on to bases, and these rules were directly for soldiers. Now, it turns out Specialist Aaron Robinson, who was alleged to have been Vanessa's murderer, he was leaving Fort Hood and coming and going. So he was being watched based on that alone. He was being watched by superiors on base and investigators simply because of his comings and goings, which were in violation of the COVID-19 guidelines. So he was not being watched because he was a suspect of Vanessa's disappearance. In fact, he didn't even become a suspect until the day of, and until the day of his suicide. So we've already established that because of COVID, Fort Hood was on lockdown. We've already established that the DOD sent out memorandums with guidelines for soldiers to follow during the COVID. And we've already established that Aaron Robinson, a specialist at Fort Hood, was being watched because of his violations of those guidelines. So now, April the 22nd. April the 22nd comes along, and Vanessa Guillen is not answering phone calls from her sisters, which was tradition every morning. Um, what drew, I guess you could say, nervousness, or what drew concern, was her 12 o'clock call to her fiance Juan that she made religiously. She was always available for that 12 o'clock call. In fact, her duties made it so that she was free during that 12 o'clock hour. So there would have been nothing that took her away from that call. Once she missed that 12 o'clock call with her fiance and subsequent text messages went unanswered, they knew something was wrong. And so by April the 23rd, the following day, Myra Guillen took the ride down from Houston to Fort Hood to look for her sister, to demand answers. According to Myra, when she arrived at Fort Hood on the morning of April the 23rd, she was met by Specialist Aaron Robinson, who laughed at her concerns about where her sister was. He had two other soldiers with her. I was not able to, he had two other soldiers with him. I was not able to find their names, but I assume that those names will be available, as well as the witnesses to Aaron Robinson putting a tough box into his truck will be made available at the conclusion of the five-person civilian panel, which will be concluded by December of this year. So, so Myra was met by SPC Robinson the following day, along with two soldiers, and she mentioned that Aaron Robinson laughed at her when she expressed her concerns about her sister, and they essentially told her to come back the next day. She did come back the next day, but she asked to speak to a superior officer, and believe it or not, that superior officer told her, "Listen, I'm still sleeping right now. Come back in a few hours." This was at 5 a.m., and this is what he told Myra Guillen. So again, it's unbelievable how they handled this case from the very beginning. So now it's April the 24th, and Myra Guillen is not taking no for an answer. She winds up rallying her family at Fort Hood, and they begin literally to protest outside, demanding that their sister be sent home. The military commander at that time, Commander Eflint, addressed the family and told them that Army CID was actively investigating the allegations made by Myra, and that they would begin to send out search parties and to try to ascertain the whereabouts of Vanessa Guillen. Obviously, this didn't happen, and for 60 days, the Guillens were given the runaround. They were given the runaround by Army CID. They were given the runaround by Guillen PD, and essentially they were given a runaround by the entire chain of command at Fort Hood. Once they secured Natalie Cowam as their attorney, going into the month of May, that's when they were able to also attract media news coverage. And once media news coverage got a hold of the protests at Fort Hood, that's when national attention started to be drawn to this. And that's why the following month, I learned about it on June the 12th. So by June the 12th, the Guillen family had already been actively protesting and rallying at the main gate of Fort Hood every single Friday, where they remained late into the night and continued the next day. By June 30th, Vanessa's remains were found by Tim Miller of Texas EcuSearch and his team. Initially, there was a report that some guys who were working on a fence near where the remains were found smelled something peculiar. They said it was an awful smell, and when they went to investigate, that's when they say that they found partial remains encased in concrete. So that's how they were able to find Vanessa. The poor woman was dismembered. The pieces were burned in an attempt to hide the pieces, and then those pieces were encased in cement, and those pieces of cement were then buried. So the depravity of what was done to her was just in unfathomable, unfathomable. And so once the remains were found, um, uh, I'm sorry, it's kind of tough to get through that part just to think of that.
Yeah.
So once the remains were found, the family was contacted, and they were told that, and this was by Texas EcuSearch, that it was likely Vanessa had been found. They were waiting for 100% confirmation from pathologists, but it was likely Vanessa. And so, obviously, you can't imagine the heartbreak and the devastation that was felt by the family. One of the 16-year-old sister, who again has been an outspoken advocate for the family, she said, "How is it possible for her to disappear while on base? This was her job. This was her home. The military guaranteed responsibility for her safety. So how could she disappear while on base?" And so again, you can't imagine the grief that this family was suddenly stricken with when they came to the realization that Vanessa was murdered. After Vanessa was found, that's when Gloria Guillen, through the lawyer and through the media, said that Vanessa told her, expressed to her, right after a period of reluctance,
Yeah.
right, that she was being sexually harassed and that it was really bad. How bad it was, we can only speculate, but there are many theories as to the degree of harassment that she experienced. What we do know, however, is that she mentioned a sergeant. Okay, Aaron Robinson was an E-class soldier, if I'm not mistaken, the same rank as her.
Yes.
Vanessa was equally a very intelligent person. Everyone can attest to that. School classmates, fellow soldiers. She was intelligent, so I highly doubt that she would have mixed up the rank of the person that she was alleging raped her. I don't think that she would mix a specialist with a sergeant. If it was a sergeant, then it was a sergeant. I don't think that she accidentally misspoke when she was expressing that to her mom. So the narrative that Aaron Robinson was the one, along with his girlfriend Cecily Aguilar, responsible for her murder, it's there's some holes in that. There's some holes in that. And based on the information that we've been able to gather from her mother, from her sisters, and from military advocates who were recently stationed at Fort Hood, that it seems highly unlikely that Aaron Robinson would have been able to carry this out all on his own, even with help from Cecily Aguilar, who mind you, is out on bond right now. So, I mean, Anna, we have still a ton of questions to ask behind this, but we really need to start there, back at Fort Hood. So now, so I could finish capping off the progress, or the timeline rather, of Vanessa's case and the introduction of the bill.
Yes. You
So,
left off on June 30th.
yeah. So on June 30th, when the remains were found, shortly after that, that's when the family expressed that Vanessa had made allegations about being sexually harassed by a superior officer. Immediately after that, Natalie Cowam drafted hashtag I am Vanessa Guillen bill, and her goal was to, through the bill, establish a separate entity, right, where soldiers who were being sexually harassed, exploited, or had suffered any sexual assault can supersede their chain of command and go directly to this third-party agency who would also be able to prosecute those offenses.
Yeah.
She also, through the bill, the I Am Vanessa Guillen bill, the initial draft, also wanted to reform how the Army categorizes missing soldiers, how they investigate instances of soldiers who have gone AWOL. Because up until this point, it was very generic. They'd make a call to family, hey, have you seen this soldier? Is he back home? No, we haven't. Okay, well, if he doesn't report by such and such day, he's considered AWOL. Tell you what, if you see him, give us a call. And when we see him, we'll give you a call. And then that's it. They can say that they go out and they search for people. They can say that they have a period of time where they dedicate resources solely to search for this soldier. But in the case of Gregory Scott Morales Weddle, who disappeared August 2019 and was found August 2020, it's proof that that's a load of malarkey, Anna, because they would have found this guy. They would have found this soldier, you know?
What's his
And
last
so, again, you know,
name? Can you
we
repeat
really
his
need to,
last name for everybody?
Gregory Scott Morales Weddle, Wedel.
Rest in
So, Natalie Callum introduces the hashtag I Am Vanessa Guillen bill that would create a third-party entity for soldiers to report allegations of sexual assault or exploitation. And she also included in the bill the goal for reforming how missing soldiers are looked for and categorized. She introduced this bill to state senators, beginning with Mark Wayne Mullins, beginning with Sylvia Garcia, and in the very early stages, she was also in contact with Representative Jackie Spears, who has been a long-standing advocate for military justice, many years. In fact, the most of her career, she's been spent advocating for military justice and victim of violence. So Jackie Spears, God bless her. Once Natalie Callum introduced her idea to the senators, they began doing what they could do to get information, to work on the bill, to secure investigations, which was number one goal from the beginning, while Natalie was working on the bill. So Natalie introduced this bill at the DC rally on July the 30th. So from June the 30th, when Vanessa's body was found, until the DC rally, July 30th, Natalie Callum was working on this bill to introduce it directly to President Trump, who was the only person at the time, the only politician in the entire country who addressed the family, who listened to the family, who spoke to the family, and who even gave condolences. I mean, for Christ's sakes, even Governor Abbott of Texas to this day, has not made one comment about the crimes at Fort Hood. Not one. And not only about Vanessa, but about the subsequent deaths and disappearances. Not one. Not one. That's highly questionable. And it just goes to show how there's still a lot of work to do in order to get delegates and our elected officials to mobilize on this bill. So now we fast forward to August 30th. August 30th is when the 5-person panel, who was supposed to be the civilian oversight, arrived at Fort Hood. It didn't take long for the members of that panel to find instances that were highly questionable in Fort Hood regarding treatment of soldiers and living conditions of soldiers. Once the 5-person panel began their investigation that started off with that's when the congressional delegation said, well, you know what, we're going to do the very same thing. We're going to get a bunch of elected politicians and elected leaders, and we're going to go down to Fort Hood. We're going to demand that they let us into Fort Hood, and we're going to take a tour of Fort Hood. We're going to talk to chain of command. We're going to talk to soldiers, and we're going to talk to civilians so that we can get an idea of the atmosphere that exists in Fort Hood. And now, fast forward to today, you and I both know that the revelations that have come out of those investigations into Fort Hood are frightening, Anna. Truly, truly frightening. You said it before. It's almost scary, terrifying, because this is a secret, bloody history that has existed for a long time within the ranks of the United States military. And it affects each and every citizen in this country, especially people like us who consider ourselves patriots and military allies. Um, so right now we are at a point where you have the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act of 2020. I have this bill in its full context linked on my bio on Instagram. If
Yep.
yourself or any of the listeners want to take a look, it's about 30 pages. And I would like you to stop at page 13 in particular. Lines 17 through 25. I believe this is subsection 1561, and also page 14, lines 1 through 7. This is going to give you an idea of the bill's ultimate goal. And also, I would like for you and your listeners to add their input on whether or not they feel that the verbiage included in the bill is not self-defeating. So that'll be good for you guys to do that. And Natalie Pelosi promised the family after a meeting early September on Capitol Hill that she would put the bill on the floor for a vote.
Yeah.
It's now heading into mid-October, and no word on it. Mitch McConnell himself has 300 bipartisan bills sitting on his desk waiting for review. And Nancy Pelosi does not want to introduce any bill for a vote to the House until after the election, so as not to, in her way, help Trump. So we're stuck. And while this bill is in limbo, we still have no additional protections for soldiers. In fact, if there was a rape happening right now, God forbid, that victim would still have to make a formal complaint to her chain of command. And again, in many cases, the perpetrators of these depraved acts are chain of command.
That's right.
So
We
we
can't wait on
are,
this, Nancy Pelosi.
we
People gotta
cannot,
live.
we cannot,
How many
we
sexual
cannot.
assaults do you think happen in a month in Fort Hood? Like
Many,
daily? Daily.
many. I mean, with the statistic of 1 in 3 females being sexually harassed, this could possibly go on every single day
In
in
every
many
single
shapes,
base.
in every base, and in many different shapes and forms.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm curious to read those lines. I glanced at the bill. I got the
Mhm.
main parts of it, but I never actually sat down and read the whole thing.
Yeah,
There
so smack
is
dab in the middle of the bill,
much. Go
it's a
ahead.
lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot. Smack dab in the middle of the bill, page 13 and 14. That section in particular is very important
Okay.
because it addresses how the third party agency will be created, and it addresses how a soldier is able to report sexual assault.
It's that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
There's nobody overseeing that right now other than chain of command, or they say that it's private and unrestricted reporting and there's restricted reporting. It's clearly not working.
Yeah.
We cannot wait.
No.
Time is money though, right? Oh my
Yep.
gosh. And who are the people that are, let's just say this again, the people that are staying in the military for careers, they are the ones that have been involved in the corruption and the covering up, just to look good, just to, look good for statistics. And
That's it.
your daughter, your son, your nephew, your niece, they are potential victims if they haven't already been assaulted. And many people don't come up, don't talk about it, and that's why I'm making the No Bad Kids nonprofit, because if we can educate our kids before they're in these situations to what to look for, how to not become a victim, they might never have to go through any of this stuff. They might be saved. They might actually think, about what the risk is instead of just blindly joining the military, instead of
Correct.
blindly doing anything,
Correct.
really. So, you know,
Correct.
wow.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm going to do too. I'm going to try to, and because you don't want to discourage the youth. You know,
No.
if you have a young man who is doesn't know what else he wants to do, if he shows enthusiasm and pride in his decision to join the services, who am I to destroy that?
Yeah.
I want to share with this young person the truth. I want them to make educated decisions that not only help them in the present but in the future, right? But I don't want to steal something from them, you know.
No.
But I would hope that by education, that by advocacy, that by the creation of important podcasts such as the Bad Moms podcast, that we can get information that the youth can absorb and understand and make their decisions based on that information.
Exactly.
For example, if I had a young person come up to me right now and say, "Listen, what do you think about me joining the military? In fact, I've already looked into it, and if I get this MOS or if I qualify for this MOS, I can be shipped to Fort Hood." I will basically tell them, listen, as of July 2020, according to areavibes.com, which is a data company that specializes in collecting demographic information, they rated Fort Hood, Texas in F in livability, in F in livability, with total crime at 63% above the national average. There are an estimated total of 4,199 total crimes per 100,000 people, and an estimated 62% of those crimes are listed as violent crimes. According to the same site and supported by statistics released by the DoD, like you said before, you have a 1 in 24 chance of becoming a victim of crime at Fort Hood, and you have a 1 in 3 chance of becoming a victim of sexual assault at Fort Hood. These are facts that are irrefutable. They are verifiable. They are being released by the DoD themselves. And this is the information that I would want youth who believe that they want to go into the military to understand first.
Yes.
First.
I agree with that. And that is exactly what I would say. I would say research, make sure you want to be there. Make sure you're going to be able to handle that.
Mhm.
As parents, we want to protect our kids, but we don't want to limit them. But if they feel so strongly about something, you can't stop them either. So you don't want to be the
Mhm.
bad guy. I
Yeah.
wish I went active duty, but my mom was too scared, so I joined
Yeah.
National Guard.
Yeah.
But I wish but whatever,
Yeah. I feel the same way. And in fact, I'm not an overly religious person. I'm not super superstitious, but I do believe that God had some kind of plan for me because after I graduated high school, I actually graduated a few months late behind some trouble I had gotten into early in my youth. But I graduated in 2004, and immediately after I graduated in 2004, I had made a pact with three other high school buddies. There was four of us in total, that we would enter into a different branch in the military, and that we would complete a tour or two, and we would be in contact with each other. We would essentially be a band of brothers from Hudson County, New Jersey.
Wow.
Uh, I went to my local recruiting station, and I signed up to join the Navy. I passed my ASVAB test, and I passed my physical at the MEPS, and I was given an MOS of ship serviceman with departure date 2 days after my, I believe it was my 20th birthday or 21st birthday. Um, and so as a gift for, essentially getting into the Navy and passing and getting ready to ship out, my mother sent me to go visit family in Puerto Rico. And this was when I told you very early on today that I had been there in 2005 one time. Um, and so while I was out there, Anna, I get a call from my mom one day. And she says, son, listen, you got a letter here from the Navy. And I mean, it looks important. And I said, well, Mom, don't wait for me to get back home. Open up the letter. Tell me what it says. And oh man, Anna, it was hard that day. She basically read that I was separated from enlistment in the Navy, and I was totally confused. I separated. You know, what had I done to be separated from the military? And so I booked a return flight back to back to States, and I went home, got the letter, and on the bottom of the letter it tells me reason for separation is fraudulent enlistment. What the hell does that even mean? So immediately I go to my recruiter's office, and he takes me into Chief Ogilvy's office, and he says, listen, he's got a letter for separation for fraudulent enlistment. And it seemed like the chief already knew. And the chief says, yeah, you know, that's really too bad. You know, maybe we'll sit this one out. And I'm looking at him like,
What?
Chief, this is what I wanted to do with my life. Every instruction that you guys gave me, I followed. When I got in trouble at 16 years old, I told you about it. We went and got the paperwork. When I got in trouble at 17 years old, I told you about it. We went and got the paperwork. So what is it that essentially makes my application a fraudulent enlistment? And they said, well, here's what happened. When you were 16 years old, in order for your troubles not to be on your juvenile record, you opted to go to a program, and you never completed that program. So your paperwork transferred from the court to that program, and we never recorded or submitted that transfer of paperwork into your initial application. And because of that, they deemed it a fraudulent application. Oh man, Anna, when I went into such a depression,
Wow.
and I hope you don't mind me sharing this. And
No, please share how
it's
you dealt
probably
with that letdown.
yeah, I haven't revisited this in a long time, but you know, I went into a deep depression. After that, I there was no plan that I had besides going into the service with my friends, and so I tried to commit suicide. My mother saved me from jumping out of a window to an apartment that we had on the third floor. Um, you know, she literally pulled me from jumping out the window. I was halfway out the window. I was done. And you know, when she pulled me in, you know, we sat there and cried for a long, long time. And you know, it was a bonding experience for us, but it was also an eye opener because seeing the pain in my mother's face, I came face to face with the reality of a terrible decision that I almost made. That I was going to destroy the rest of my mother's life, my siblings, and my family, because I couldn't process something negative that happened to me in a healthy way. Um, and so, thank God, I got past that. Um, but again, now going forward, 10 years later, I got a 13-year-old son. Behind all this stuff that is happening, I kid you not, Anna, as a battle buddy, as a brother in arms, I would not have been able to stand by and watch depraved or heinous acts like this being perpetrated on my sisters in the military. I would have assaulted fellow officers. I would have been thrown in the military brig for assault against fellow officers simply because I would have been protecting uh, other soldiers, men or women, men or women. You know, if I came into a barracks room and I saw that the superior officer had a fellow battle buddy up against the wall in a compromised position, obviously being assaulted, I'm cracking him over the back of the head. But then I'm going to the brig. I'm getting in trouble and I'm getting dishonorably discharged. And so I imagine that that's the case with some of these men in the military who have recently been killed. I mean, it's credible. Um, but again, you know, we're just trying to figure this all out, and that's where we are now, Anna.
Maybe you were saved from that whole experience. Have you thought of that? Maybe
Yeah,
it wasn't
I do.
your, yeah.
I
I'm
do.
glad that you're still here with us, and thank you for
Me too.
sharing
Thank
that.
you. Me too. You know, I see my kids now, how smart they are, how healthy they are, and you know how many blessings I enjoy in my life day to day. Uh, and you know, I'm glad that wasn't the outcome.
I hope that you feel brave enough to share this with your kids at some point, because Suicide Prevention Month, I mean, not month, it's every day. It should
Hmm.
be, so many people are committing suicide right now over these lockdowns and
Oh yeah.
isolation, and mental health is extremely, extremely hard
Hmm.
to teach. But I think through personal experience, overcoming these difficult emotions and opening up on a deep level with your children and talking to them as you might have wished somebody talked to you when you were
Oh
younger,
yeah. Oh yeah.
that
Hmm.
could prevent how they react because, damn, dad, really, you did that? That's brave. That's brave for
Yeah.
you to tell me that. And not a lot of men, women can be on that deep level because they have too many insecurities.
Hmm.
And instead of taking accountability for their own actions, they just
Right.
blame other people.
Right.
And somehow they sleep at night, and somehow they continue to live in this facade of a perfect life and a perfect
Hmm.
family. Meanwhile, their demons are destroying their family
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
their children's lives, and who knows who else.
Hmm.
So if we can just put the bullshit aside and take accountability for the, you know, times when we're down, help each other out instead of pointing fingers and accusations and shaming people. If you see somebody down, you could be saving their life.
Hmm.
You could be
100%.
saving their life with just your emotional, deep story,
Hmm.
um, putting that in perspective. Like, you're not alone, you know? So we don't have much of that going on right now. And that's why I made a podcast, because I really
Smart.
thought I had a lot to say, and I'm done talking on social media. I want
Hmm.
to talk to like-minded individuals.
Hmm.
Um, if there's anybody listening that wants to come on my show that resonates with what me and Noel are saying, please, please, please reach out, because the
Absolutely.
more we use our voice, the more we're heard, and we could help families like Vanessa Guillen
Okay.
and her, her poor mother, her poor sisters. I mean, I just can't imagine that grief
Hmm.
from an army hero. I mean, she had such a potential. It's not just a person. It could be anybody's brother, anybody's sister. And
Hmm.
as in the last two episodes I did, the what's going on in the U.S. Air Force is very alarming. And
Mm.
so if it's going on in the Air Force, it's going on the Fort Hood. I mean, we
Hmm.
can't wait on this stuff. You need to reach
Absolutely not.
out. You need to share. You need to subscribe to this podcast. Subscribe to other military
Yep.
podcasts. There's another podcast called Military Murder. I really appreciate that. Like, and then my friend Adam Dorito that I just interviewed,
Hmm.
he and Erin are Erin is another woman that just came out about sexual assault from Colorado. There's so many people reaching out that I'm overwhelmed.
Mm.
So I'm overwhelmed because that means it's just that much more of a problem. So if we
Yeah.
don't push our leadership that we
Hmm.
elect to make a change and make a difference, Donald Trump, pass the bill, make Nancy Pelosi pass this bill. We can't wait for more soldiers
Well,
to
we need
become
to
victims.
we need to vote. Yeah, we need to vote Nancy Pelosi out, and then maybe we can start to introduce bills that benefit the collective. That's what we need to do first.
Yeah, the military reform. I mean, the FBI. I mean, they're all aware of this stuff, and the corruption
Yeah.
is everywhere. So if you're still denying that the military and our government is corrupt, you live under a rock. How's it going with Dan Crenshaw? You said you reached out to Dan Crenshaw.
Yeah. So very early again, and I kind of collected a list of all the power players in government over there in Texas, and I reached out via social media to Dan Crenshaw. And this was when I started a petition. And I don't know how I managed to skip this piece of information, but very early on in June, I believe it was June 17th, I began a petition on change.org um, which was a petition to um, direct the House Armed Services Committee to initiate wide-ranging investigations into the chain of command at Fort Hood and to reopen other cases, including that of Tina Priest, Kamisha Block, Genesee Gresham, and Lavina Johnson. And also in that petition was the demand for a civilian review board. And so I'm very, very proud to say that each of those demands in that petition were met on some level throughout the course of the movement. And by the end of the petition, when I claimed a victory, I had garnered 1,000 signatures, which, for me to do here in Jersey City, where nobody really cares much about anything, was phenomenal. Because of that petition, I was also able to get an audience as well as support from the council president of the city of Jersey City, who also expressed his concerns with the lack of media coverage of the Vanessa Guillen case and his willingness to work with me on creating a resolution that would essentially make Jersey City a safe haven where active and former military can come and report any instances of abuse done to them, and they will suffer no negative stigma here in Hudson County. They would find a home here.
Wow, that's
And
amazing. Thank you so
yeah,
much for doing that.
no, thank
It's
you,
an
and every one of the supporters who shared and who signed the petition. I mean, the support and the momentum that was created behind that was phenomenal. It got the attention of the Guillen family, and that's what matters. I
Thank
want
you.
I wanted them to see that just because they were from a small town in Houston, Texas, that their cause and their pain was felt by their brothers and sisters nationwide. I wanted them to know that first. So going back to who I reached out to, Dan Crenshaw was one of them. Noble man. I had a lot of confidence in him, still do. But I also reached out to Louis Gohmert. I reached out to Will Hurd. I reached out to Michael McCall. I reached out to Chip Roy. I reached out to Kevin Brady. I reached out to Randy Weber. I reached out to Michael Burgess, and I reached out to John Lee Ratcliffe. And these are all delegates for the state of Texas, um, most from the 31st Congressional District, which is the area that's in charge of Bell and Coryell counties, Killeen and Fort Hood.
Wow.
Um, they were not as
Bless you.
receptive as I would like for them to have been. But again, these guys are inundated with the theatrics of the political theater, the current political theater that's going on right now. So I kind of understand. However, I am not pleased, and I don't have a blanket approval for just a total disregard of the issue. Um, in addition to reaching out to delegates, I also reached out to some members of the Army, starting with Secretary Mark Esper. I also
Mhm.
reached out to Secretary Ryan McCarthy, who was also the gentleman that was interviewed in the 2-hour Vanessa Guillen special. I reached out to Senator James Inhofe, who is the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, as well as the co-chair, Senator Jack Reed. I inundated their social media profiles, and I still do to this day. So they either know me or they have blocked me, one of the two. But those guys are directly responsible for putting the pressure on people like Nancy Pelosi to get this bill on the floor for a vote. If they applied the pressure of their committees behind Nancy Pelosi, she would be forced to put this bill up for a vote. And because there is no pressure coming from Senator James Inhofe and Senator Jack Reed, I believe that's why the bill is still being
Tabled.
stalled. Yeah, yeah.
All right.
I reached out to Congressman Kevin McCarthy. I reached out to Congressman Adam Smith, and I also reached out to Congressman Mac Thornberry, who's a very strong advocate for military and military justice.
Wow. Okay. we will be reaching them out with our interview too.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah, sure. If
the more we share, the more we hashtag, the more
hmm
voices, the more people can hear your voice
hmm
and possibly Vanessa's.
Yeah. So what I'll do, and this is for you and your readers as well, is I will forward you all of the links to their social media profiles uh,
Yeah, I'm gonna tag
people I
all
just
of them.
mentioned.
They're gonna hate me.
Tell them I sent you.
Yeah. Oh, hey, your buddy Noel. He told me you guys are not doing shit. Yeah. Let's see. They work for us and they keep forgetting that.
They work for us, and they certainly have, but that's because we've allowed them to get away with that for decades.
That's right, because we just simply don't want to talk about politics. It's too
Yeah.
stressful.
Yeah.
It's too cliche and taboo.
Hmm.
And if you're not talking about politics, what are you talking about? I mean, at least at least know who you're voting for and at least
Oh yeah.
support certain things. Have does my generation even like have any values left? I don't really know. I really don't. Our generation, I'm sorry, we're in the same age bracket, but like
No, but I asked the same
I
question, Anna. You're right.
question. I actually have more friends that are older because I
Yeah.
can't find that collective mindset of do something, do better, be your best self,
Yeah.
make a change, use your voice. Um, I'm just bored with
Yeah.
the people that like I I have in the past surrounded myself. They just
Hmm.
talk. They're just
Yeah.
talk,
And
and they don't make
that's a
any
sad
changes.
thing. Yeah. And that's terrible. That's, it really is a sad thing because we would hope that as we grow, those around us grow in the same direction.
Yep.
But what I'm finding out more and more is that we may be looking at the same thing, the same exact thing, but we will get two different messages out of that same thing that we're looking at. And so the point is to, or the goal is to find those people that see the same message in what you're looking at, and not
Mhm.
people that are just regurgitating your views or you regurgitating their views, but a collective consciousness that shifts the paradigm and brings us to a higher level of consciousness. And so if we can call each other friends for 10 years, but I'm starting to go to the way of service for others, and you are still in that selfish mindset of you, me, guess what? I love you, I wish you well, respect to you, but I'm going this way, and you can stay wherever you are.
Yeah, yeah. You got to keep moving because life is short. So,
Oh
who do
yeah.
you want to be when this lockdown's over?
Oh
Whose
yeah.
life are you trying to change? If anybody's, maybe just yourself.
Hmm.
Are
Hmm.
you
And
sitting around wasting your own life?
mhm. And you know what? Your viewers are of a huge demographic. I mean, we're part of that demographic, but your listeners and your viewers, um, they are essentially, or we are essentially, more powerful in terms of the decision making, right? If we get together collectively, than the baby boomers. We
Yeah.
outmatch them now between Gen X and Gen Z, who are the people born right below us, right? The 20-year-olds now.
Hmm.
We outweigh them in terms of decision making power. But the powers that be are essentially pitting Gen X against Gen Z. And so that's why we look at these 20 something year olds who are out there dancing around and wearing funny clothes, like we almost hate them, like we have a disdain for them. And that
Yeah.
is a huge, huge tragedy. But that is a tactic used by the powers that be because they know that if we get together collectively, we can effect immediate, impactful, and long lasting change.
That's right.
And
And that's why we're locked down away from each other, so we can't do that.
oh, yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Think of how coincidentally that happened, you know?
Yeah, but it's great if you just utilize technology that's right in front of you. So, and if you don't have that technology, that sucks because if you're locked down without a way to communicate with someone in Jersey City or someone in Australia, I'm sorry. That
Yeah.
that must be hard. But
It definitely is.
I hope that we still have a cell phone and you can find the help you need. The internet is there. You just have to know how to use it.
Hmm.
Just shift through that stuff, get duck duck go, and
Hmm.
find out, try to really figure out when you're being lied to, because
Oh
with these
yeah.
politicians, they're constantly lying and lying and lying. If you by 30 years old still don't know when you're being lied to and
Hmm.
fed spoon-fed lies,
Hmm.
you're gonna have a tough time.
Going to have a very tough time navigating, especially if you're having plans of becoming a parent at that point.
Oh, I
But
know, right?
it's incredible, and you know what, Anna, I think on some level we have a moral obligation as members of humanity to shed light on this, because this is a scourge of humanity. This is up there with child and human trafficking. This is up there with uh, just a bunch of heinous crimes that for a long time have been kind of swept under the rug. It was almost taboo to talk about them.
Yeah,
The unwanted conversations in every and any household, and because of that, this
sheltered.
behavior was allowed to grow legs and grow tentacles and cover the
Yep.
planet. So I think we
Luckily,
have
luckily we can be free thinkers in this country and express our views. I'm sorry to
100% right.
interrupt you.
No, no, no.
Yep.
That was basically the idea, that
Yeah.
we really need to start to become free thinkers. We need to unlearn many years of learned propaganda,
Yes, and
while
just
also
accepting everything that's being taught to us
while
without
also
questioning.
maintaining a love for the country, though.
That's
We
right.
that we must maintain a love for the country, because to your listeners, and even to reinforce this into myself, into my own psyche, this is the last place in the world where we can enjoy freedoms to be a human being, freedom to dissent, freedom to agree, freedom to voice opinion, freedom to remain silent, freedom to rally in any way, shape, or form without fear that a small group of state sponsored soldiers are going to come into your house and make you disappear for sharing those views, for sharing ideas, for dissenting against the state or the government. This is the
Yeah.
only country left in the world where you are guaranteed those freedoms by the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. It doesn't exist anywhere. And so we really, despite all the injustices in the country that are made by a result of policy, right? Policy,
Yes.
we need to make sure that we have a fundamental appreciation and a genuine love for the country. For
That's
the
right.
country. Let's be aware of the history. Let's learn from and be better because of the history. But we cannot hate this country, and we cannot be so spoiled, right? And so complacent in our Americanism
Mm-hmm.
that we think that we can destroy the power structure in this country, but still enjoy the benefits of the power structure that existed before the destruction. We cannot be that ignorant.
There are some people that think that we can, and everybody that's burning and rioting things, you're not making a change. You're making things worse. And as soon as communism does come here, which I hope it never does, you won't have
Certainly
that
not.
freedom. You won't be, you will be arrested instantly. And I mean, these
Instantly.
people are being arrested, but
Instantly.
yeah, you're saying that voting people who hate this country into office is the last thing we should be doing. I mean, we've we've
Well,
we've
we
had
need we
some
need to
shitty
figure
leadership
out.
on both ends, though. So you got to know when your politician's lying to you by, instead of watching TV, go and read these bills. But if you
Definitely.
don't, stay ignorant and just don't even open your mouth about politics. Just
Hmm.
stay silent. Your opinion is null and void. You're just a body.
Yeah, and that's terrible. I would hate to accept the realization that people are comfortable with doing just that,
Yeah.
being willfully and blissfully ignorant. I would hate to finally come to the realization that people would much rather be that way than the opposite
Yes,
of
I agree.
aware.
100%. So I have to wrap it up. I actually
Okay.
have another interview coming up and I got to prepare for it. I did
Okay.
not expect this one tonight, and I just had a feeling like you, think we connected and you were free on Friday, but my whole evening is free. So I enjoyed this conversation a lot, and I
Very much.
enjoyed the energy here.
Hmm.
Uh, this I'm so glad I did this. So every day I wake up, I don't regret this decision because I meet individuals like yourself that care, that want to make a difference, that go out of their way, use their time, their resources to go support these complete strangers that are
Yeah.
suffering
Hmm.
because of shitty leadership in the military, corruption, gang violence, and it's just completely swept under the rug because
Mm.
our politicians, Nancy Pelosi, she's my least favorite politician, just completely disregard the American people. They don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. They don't have to care. We got a president that donates his entire salary, but is
Mm.
criticized day in and day out for doing what? For
Hmm.
probably doing his job and the things that
Yeah.
he promised to do. The amount of work he's done uh, is incredible. I think there's the list is like 130 things that he did.
Yeah. Yeah. I have the list.
Yes, like if you are if you hate him, you like him, that doesn't matter. Does he get things done? Does he align with the values
Hmm.
of whatever you believe in, or
Yep.
are your do your values actually need to be reevaluated, or are you still
Yes.
on
I,
the
I,
same
th- I
spot?
think I think that's what we need to do. I think we need to be a little less selfish. I think we all need to take a step back and reevaluate where the origins of our hatred come from,
That's right.
right?
Who
We
told
really
you
need
to
to do that.
hate him?
Exactly.
He was loved up until he ran for office. Everybody loved him.
Absolutely. Everyone wanted Donald Trump around. Everyone wanted Trump's name on a building. Everyone wanted a Trump push pen with the light on the top.
Yeah.
Whenever I saw Trump in New York, because I used to work for Interior Marketing Group, which was a very famous interior design company that operates out of Manhattan, I bumped into him in the very early stages of him running for president back in 2015. He was at the New York news station across the street from the Pyramid Building, which was one of his properties, and that's where we were working. So I go for lunch one day, and he comes moseying out of the news center, and everybody loved him. You got strangers in the street hanging halfway out of the window saying hello. People who were standing next to me were starstruck. And then all
Wow.
of a sudden, when he starts to attack cronyism, long historical cronyism in this country, when he started to uh, um, divert himself away from those lifelong political players that are leveraging the laws to circumvent the Constitution in this country, that's when everybody started to hate him. And that's when the propaganda machine of the Democratic National Convention, known as the mainstream media, started to teach you and I to hate Donald Trump.
Yeah, there's a
It
lot of
didn't
money
work.
invested in that.
A lot of money invested in that, and
They almost
you got to
got
ask
me.
yourself why.
Yeah, why? Why? That doesn't make any
But
sense because I realized I was being targeted for being an environmental student, for being I don't know, a yogi, a hippie mom, just free spirit. I like peace signs and all that stuff. Kumbaya. So I was like,
so
what,
stupid.
what? Why am I being? Why is this negative article after negative article after negative article? And I started feeling like I'm a victim. Like, why isn't he paying off my student loan? And why? And this and that. And I was like, oh my god, they got me because in 2016 I was like praying for him to be elected because I didn't want war with Russia or any other country for that
Mhm.
fact, because we all know the last administration just loved wars. I mean, how many countries did Obama bomb?
Oh
Like
yeah, oh yeah.
13?
Not
I
to
lost
mention,
track.
in those last years of the Obama presidency, the heightened sense of readiness between Russia and the United States. I mean, every interaction between Putin and Obama was testy. You could almost feel the animosity between these two guys.
Yeah. And you know what? He The Cold War bullshit needs to stop. I'm just so sick of it. It's just like the propaganda to hate Russia, it doesn't stop. And I have so many Russian friends over there that tell me like Putin's great. And I'm like, really?
Mhm.
Because every article over here I'm reading is Putin sucks and
Oh yeah.
Putin's horrible and Putin's this. But if you need a leader that's fixing things like the way Putin fixed Russia, for the most part, he has fixed a lot. I mean, my grandmother had open heart surgery on the government.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And she flew back there to go get it because our healthcare system is trash. So,
Unreal. Wow.
and not
God
trash,
bless her.
it's just rigged, and
Oh yeah.
it's the people that are needing the benefits, they can't afford
Hmm.
them, and we're making money off of sick people. So that's a whole nother tangent. But I'm really excited to do another podcast with you. If
Yeah.
you
Sure.
got more research to put out into the
Tons.
world, I have plenty of time that I will make for you because
Okay.
we need to keep talking about this.
I
um,
appreciate that very, very
yeah.
much. And to the listeners of the Bad Moms podcast, I thank you very much for joining and paying attention tonight. I hope that we were able to resonate with you. I hope that you can use some of the facts that we highlighted today to begin your quest for answers, to begin your research, and to begin, your knowledge. So God bless you guys. I wish you the best. And as a military ally, I pledge to be the voice of the voiceless. And Bad Moms podcast. Thank you so much. God bless you and Godspeed.
God bless you too. Thank you, Noel. Um,
You're very welcome.
Please share this episode. Please like and subscribe. If you have time to leave me a rating, a review, I would really much appreciate that so we can circulate to more people. And that's how the algorithm works. I mean, so I'm very new at this, but I feel like I'm making a difference by having the conversation. If you would like to reach out, email me at thebadmompodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram, The Bad Mom Podcast. And I have a Facebook group, The Bad Mom Podcast. And there's a Twitter too. So you can find me. I'll put this information at the end of the video. I also have a YouTube. So you can watch me and Noel have our conversation. And just thank you so much for just taking that time out of your day to listen, because we have to have the meaningful conversations. You could easily listen to Lost My Daddy and get nothing out of that other than how to be a whore, but these are not important things. Okay, podcasts that are making a difference, we should be paying attention to them. We should be paying attention to what's going on in the world right now, not just for our entertainment, because you could be the next victim or your kid. So start paying attention and start contacting your politicians to make these votes count. Okay? Well, thank you so much. Take care and